The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is Dan Aston, I'm the Marketing Manager here at Corso. Got a good topic and presentation lined up for you today. Before I pass you over to Alan for the presentation, I just want to let you all know that you are on mute, so minimizing the background noise. So if you've got a question at any time, please just submit the question into the little question box that you should see in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll have time at the end of the presentation to answer those questions for you. So with that, I'll pass you over to Alan Burnett for the presentation.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alan Burnett from Corso, and I look after, well, I'm CIO, I'm responsible for the operations piece, so that includes consulting, support, and general delivery of our service to everybody. So if you've used us before as a customer of ours, then I've been involved, and if we haven't, and we hopefully be a customer in the future, then from an operations side, that's where I get involved. So, but today I'm here to discuss the topic of the current topic within a range of different webinars that we're providing. We tend to run these monthly, different topics. And today is more, today's around the CIO and looking at how, from an enterprise architecture perspective, we can help the CIO. It's a topic that we decided to write, having seen quite a few of our implementations involving, I guess, the way that the tool and the problem is presented, being able to talk and advise the CIO. And we see a bit of a trend, so we decided to talk about it, which is what brought us to this point. So it's going to last about 45 minutes or so, and then you get a chance to ask questions. Firstly, a little bit about us. As you can probably tell, I'm from the UK, actually headquartered in the UK, although we do have offices in the US across the rest of the world. So if you were to work with, you have a number of partners as well in various parts of South America or across the globe. So that means we can support you throughout the US, North America and South America, even though I'm here talking to you from the UK. So we formed about 5 years ago. A couple of us are actually former IBM Enterprise Architecture Tool Team previous employees at IBM, and before that at Taillogic and a company called Popkin. I don't know if anybody still remembers Popkin, but it's the old system architect tool. So we kind of cut our teeth in enterprise architecture, both in terms of the tool and also in terms of the broader implementation of the tool across various clients. And you can see some of them here. There's about 100 of them in total. Some have a new platform, some have used us before an old platform and services. It's a mixture and sometimes a combination of. So hopefully today we'll build on some of those experiences and cover off some of the trends and ideas we see happening. So in terms of today's talk, it's about the CIO and the enterprise architect. It's what they're facing this year and really how the roles are changing or adapting, I guess, to the modern world. We're going to talk a lot about digital world. So I guess it's a bit of an abstract term in many ways, but certainly I like to think of it as anything that's kind of disruptive technologies around cloud or mobile or the apps that are being built outside of IT and delivered outside of IT, or the cloud app, or the cloud delivery within IT. So in this evolving digital world, it is affecting the enterprise architect and what I'll say we, as I do a lot of enterprise architecture do. We'll also talk about how business outcome driven EA, which is very much a Gartner term, but I'm going to try and put some practical spin on what that means to us. It's providing, and the opportunity that provides us to become more of an advisor to the CIO. So essentially trying to deliver, I guess, more timely models, better presentation, more relevant information for a CIO, and give them to help them and advise them in that role. We'll cover a lot of this in the cover this in the presentation. And the last sort of bit of the presentation really is about how we, just some examples of how we use, because we have our own tool set, we have a SaaS-based product for EA, some of the examples of how that may help and sort of go through the thinking that we use to try and provide some EA models that I guess would better fit the digital world. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and cover in the session, broken down to 3 areas. The first one, really, the first piece is really to look at the CIO role. Again, I don't need to go into too much detail because some of this is reasonably obvious. This is taken from, I mean, there's a number of surveys for what the CIO wants to do. There's Gartner's, which I'll come across a bit later on. There's a whole host of others. This is from HMG Strategy, who focus on the CIO role and have done some research into what's driving the CIO. And really, I guess it's something, not a whole bunch of surprises in here. Empowering the CEO's vision. I mean, any level of CEO vision, the driver, the strategy has to be implemented somehow in some sort of information or some sort of technology fashion, and that's what a CIO is, to translate that into a functioning model, marshalling the people, process, and technology, and sort of straying into the operations role a little bit here, but CIO in that space. So, in clear terms, it's getting that vision in place. One that's probably popped up more recently is around sort of risk guardian. I mean, where does risk and security fit? But a lot of that now is fully on the CIO's lap. Certainly the nature of cybersecurity threats, information quality. I know myself that we've been through, at Corso, we've been through ISO 27001, sort of very equivalent to kind of SOC 2, I guess, in terms of intensity, not quite as intense as SOC 2, but the international standard around information security. And that is around sort of understanding where the loopholes are in your model, in your environment, being able to model and understand that, and being able to understand the risk associated with those exposures to security. And those threats are ever increasing, so it's risk guardian is a key element. Enterprise architecture can help in that risk phase, but again, it's much more about interpreting the information. So if we do want to support the CIO, we need to provide information for a security team to understand where the vulnerabilities are. And actually, there's a very recent project I worked on, which is looking at vulnerabilities of interfaces between applications around key data, and simple things like that. And if we get the right information to the right person at the right time, we can really provide some sort of benefit. But the risk guardian is something that the CIO is certainly coming. Growing top IT teams, that's fine. Leading world-class culture, I guess, is the following 4 here that are fairly clear, I guess. Simplifying IT, again, is traditionally where an enterprise architect has come in, especially at sort of entry-level architecture, where it's looking at modeling what is there, what it does, and maybe how it can rationalize it. But again, it's simplifying IT is not just about removing elements from the estate. Now it's about understanding, responding to emerging market opportunities. And so, I'm going to talk a lot about IT outside of IT, and that's really where it's really a preponderance of applications, again, are building up, because the business part, or parts of the business, are actually finding their own solutions, because you can get so much single-purpose software now in the cloud, or if you're a SaaS play, then you can go ahead and buy it outside of IT. So you're getting a growth of, I guess, innovative software, innovative solutions that are building outside of IT. So CIO needs to understand what's happening outside of maybe just IT. Okay, and that also sort of then rolls into how the partnering aspect of big IT companies, of big organisations now. It's not just about on-premise outsource. There is now a whole raft of different partners that we work with, from cloud partners to particular service partners, and it's building that into an overall vision of how you're going to deliver the strategy and goals of the organisation. It's about partnering and understanding how that is, and that's what's on CIO's mind. That's what they're trying to get their head around, is how to understand that. So from an EA perspective, we can obviously help with some of these, but a lot of it is the growing of the team, but that's fine. So when the role has, the CIO role has been around a long time. So what's changed? I guess one of the things we are seeing is a shifting role from just being an IT department head, so IT manager, up now to CIO. CIO is a very different role, different responsibilities. So now the CIO now has a proper seat, I guess, at the CXO table, because he's looking across the enterprise, because of so much development that's going on outside of IT. There's a little graphic there that's a digital IQ survey, which actually shows an increasing amount of tech investment increasing outside of IT. There's actually quite a few different numbers and figures that I've seen quoted here. They range from sort of 40% to 68% here. So I think the takeout from that is it's significant that people are investing in technology. The business is buying more technology for itself and not involving IT. So what is IT's role in this world? If it just focused on its own space, so that's, it's about responsibility across the organisation, understanding that. And I guess these tech investments outside of IT could be classed as kind of your innovation, the digitalisation of things, as well as moving to sort of cloud-based systems internally within IT. So the CIO now has to sort of more than just understand, but it has to actually lead some of those innovations, and we're seeing the CIO getting involved in more innovation projects. I've come across a chief innovation officer, but it's unusual. But it's we're seeing more CIOs being involved in that. And Gartner kind of back for that with discussions around integrating your innovation process with your EA process. So the CIO is there at the forefront of understanding that. And then we have the point again, divestiture of purchasing. So again, this is where where technology is being not built in silos, but actually building outside of IT. And there are some random technology investments, what they call sort of shadow IT, but they do derail focus, and they can be in a way against building a structuring. A nice roadmap for how you want to build your IT. So we will talk in some of the I'll talk in the presentation about how enterprise architects are looking at that kind of IT, where you've got really your core delivery of applications, be that the ERP application or your core elements versus some of the let's say the innovative or side projects outside of IT. Around business intelligence. There may be some security threats. It's a whole bunch of different. We'll come on to that in a second about the focus from a technology perspective of the CIO. But again, two parallel streams of acquiring IT, and they have to somehow be managed together. And how we do that is where the enterprise architect can help. And so there's a focus on, because it's a broad church, rather than just controlling a small department, small department, that's probably the wrong word, sorry, controlling a department. It's more about guiding and advising the broader world, and the business models have changed. So for this changing business model that I talk about in markets is, I look at my phone, and I've got all sorts of apps on here now that connect up into different companies. So I've got a healthcare company, I've got my that can monitor what steps I do and change my premium, and that for me is makes me feel better about the provider that's providing my healthcare. So I've got an app to do that. So their business model has changed to try and get its tentacles out to me to understand what I'm doing, being able to charge me accordingly, and they can outgun their competition because they have that kind of technology. Now that's a very simple example. I've also got on my phone controlling some of the the temperature in my house. So there's all sorts of things that perhaps a year ago, 2 years ago, we would just not even consider. So the organisations that are building the applications have a broad IT set of systems that somehow have to interface into this mobile world. So this changing business model and market is something that CIO really has to get a handle on. Okay, so they need some support and help to do that, which we'll come on to with the enterprise architect. And so, with the digital elements I discussed there, more channels to market, different ways of doing things. I was at a presentation the other day, a telco presentation, where in telecommunications, a whole bunch of new thinking around how can we anticipate how people use phones before they know they're using them, and help them and provide new services for them. All of this stuff is outside of the core IT, but it's very important in terms of competition. You've got to get it right. So with the opportunities like called channels, more technologies, those business models I talked about, levels of engagement being right down into your customer actually transacting directly with you, even though they don't really know they're transacting with you. It's a whole new level of engagement. And of course, with that comes a series of threats, which again have to be managed. So security and privacy, which is a key one. Again, I can go back to my ISO work. I know that anybody that's going to even contemplate using a SaaS tool will be very concerned about security and privacy of data. So it's a common thing, and this is just with one single app. If we broaden that across, allowing different levels of engagement with customers to interact directly, what does that mean around security and privacy for their data? I think you get this thing wrong very few times. You have to get it right all the time. So that's the issue with that. And if you don't get it right, there are competitors who will get it right instead of you. So you've always got. It's not a case of not being able to do it. And that was the message I got from this presentation around digitising the telecommunications market. There's not actually a lot of revenue being generated from that at the moment, but it's perceived that everybody else is doing it, and so therefore we have to do it, because in a year, 2 years time, when technology moves further, and the watch is better or whatever it might be, or there's some sensor on me that gets something, then they don't want to be left behind. So there's going to be that. There's always that issue with the threat. So digital does provide opportunities, but it also provides threats as well. Key ones there. Okay, so we are moving from kind of product and an ownership of the product to supply-driven world out into sort of strategy and service, providing services and being out to the marketplace, where we have to be highly adaptable and agile. So it's the first time I mentioned agile so far, so that's good. So we have to. These are all the things that are on the CIO's plate. Okay, so I'm just going to skip that slide there. Sorry, it's not a huge amount of value, so I'll just leave that one. It's hidden. So let's go on to look more specifically at some of the technology drivers. So I did talk about two strands of IT, sort of the core, renovating the core, and making the mobile is not going to cure everything. That's just the digital part. It's just an element of it. You might swap out some of your core for digital, for cloud, whatever, but it's still going to be the core, and that still has to be the part within IT really that makes sure the business thrives and survives and moves forward. But then there's also the new technologies. So you can see here on the left, on the blue, sort of ERP, infrastructure, data center, networking, the data comms. That's kind of the core piece. And then exploiting news around digital marketing, digitization, cloud, analytics, gathering information about people, analytics being, as you can see, the key one here, which is no surprise from an investment perspective, digital. So it's how do we build these and understand what's going on inside the organization, and how do we build, from an architecture perspective, how do we build models that might support this, because clearly, and I've worked on a number of projects, and I'm sure other people have, when building enterprise architecture models and we build them too detailed, we just keep on building them. We don't really exploit any of this stuff in here. We might, by the time we've worked it out, it would have changed. So there needs to be another way of doing that. And so that's what we're trying to do with our organisation, our customers, is try and foster this kind of let's focus on the outcomes type modelling rather than just building stuff. So if you focus on the outcomes, then you have a chance of being able to address some of these elements and exploit the new, as well as renovating the core and connecting them together. So there's no perfect, there's no silver bullet here, but there's ways and you can go about trying to improve this. So when we look at the CIO and what the CIO is doing, so this source for this one is the Gartner agenda, CIO agenda. There's a couple of slides. If some of you have attended some of the presentations before, we did a longer presentation on the next three, so I'll kind of walk through them relatively quickly. But it's around the focus of EA, and if we're going to do modelling, bearing in mind that, so I'm coming from a position where we have a modelling tool. It's built deliberately to be a tool that you can get up and running with quickly, and I guess focuses on trying to build up high-level views of the models that you're going to build. But more importantly, when you build these models, and we have a program called a Quick Start, and the Quick Start is how we get people up and running. So we get data that's in an organisation, get it into the tool, and try and provide some sort of benefit from it. So that could be just a collection of data exercise. But actually, what we tend to do is look at it from a focus on the goals and deliverables. So it used to be called question-oriented architecture. So if you had a model, what would you ask of it? So, and what you would ask of it is the questions based upon, I guess, the goals of the organisation. So I might want to know I might not want to know the detailed technology impact, but I might want to know if I look at the capabilities of our organisation, which of those are key, and which of those are we performing worse than our competition? So that's kind of a very high-level view. That's more of a CIO view of technology. And then you can build some of the detail underneath that, but you only build enough detail to help you with that. So it means when you come to look at the non-core IT, then you've got a high-level capability map. You can start to pin those more shadow IT kind of applications on. And bear in mind, we should be integrating with business. We're looking at the delivery and looking at focusing on those delivery elements and outcomes. And we should be able to understand and work back from how much model do we need to build. So because we're doing things at a relatively high level, we can start to evaluate opportunities and risk, more likely to do that because we haven't got the detail that's swamping us. And I know that I've made mistakes in the past myself in terms of building models for organisations. We get swamped in the detail. What we should do is really focus on what we're trying to achieve. So what are the goals, what are the capabilities behind that, and how do we deliver those capabilities? What kind of technology is that in place to do that? If we want to deliver that, what's the roadmap that we're going to build? So that's that allows us then to understand the disruptive trends. We can plug those into models, and we link them into the deliverables at the end. So that from a very practical perspective is how we start to address this business outcome-driven EA within the tool. In terms of the enterprise architect themselves, then there are a couple of, I would guess, again, Gartner positions on the kind of EA enterprise architect that is, I guess, is evolving. Maybe 20 or 30% are looking at this kind of approach, but it's an aspiration, it's a maturity aspiration to go to. The first piece of that is around a Vanguard EA. Now, Vanguard EA is a term. It just means an enterprise architect that is looking at the new technology trends, the processes that are going on outside of necessarily IT. So that dovetails quite nicely with the CIO requirements. And again, we are seeing, admittedly, here and there, EAs that are focused on what's happening in the outside of IT, in the digital space, working with the business teams and the visionary teams, trying to understand what's going on, what sort of technologies are out there. So it's more of a thinking role, and I guess a higher level role. And so it's understanding the new IT reality, what's cloud, understanding cybersecurity or any sort of security elements, how they cut across our model, and how we need to involve. We still need to involve specialists in building this, and again, our tool set allows you to collaborate directly with anybody that needs to be involved, like a security architect, etc. But gives us a high view of intelligence on the model that we have in there. So so thinking about bringing thinking into the enterprise architectures outside the IT, quite often linked to the innovation process. And part of what we do is actually tag in that innovation process into the model. I did a presentation around how we connect that innovation piece to enterprise architecture, so I won't go too deeply into that. It allows us then, if we have a handle on what the innovation is within the organisation, we have a chance to understand what's going on outside of IT, and we can start to incorporate those elements, those technologies into our models. And then we can still build patterns, we can still work out when to incorporate those new technologies into roadmaps, etc. And it kind of goes with this, what's called Bi-Modal IT, which is mode 1 and mode 2. In terms of the technology slide I showed earlier, mode 1 is kind of your savings and efficiencies on the core. Mode 2 is around the innovation and disruptive factors. It's understanding how these new business models, how these different applications that are built up outside IT, how they fit, and how you can bring them both together, because they share the same goals and objectives, and working on a goals and objectives model at a very high level. So encompassing that innovation piece is very, very important to understand where those new revenue streams are being developed, where those new parts of the business are being developed, and what sort of technology they're looking at, and how that technology can be incorporated into a more connected roadmap. Okay, so again, it's a topic probably on its own, but let's just give you a flavour for how the EA role is also evolving. So the CIO role itself is evolving to try and be focused on understanding the broader technology remit, and I guess the EA is then sort of following that path through in terms of focusing more on that digitalisation space. And to do that, you do need to have kind of models that are built just to support what's needed. And we call it agile, just in time, just enough EA. That's what those are. So with that in mind, then as the organisation or the EA moves more towards that path, you become more likely to be involved in advising the CIO. So I'll show some slides at the end, which just shows the kind of models that we would build into that. But if we can define our models and our patterns and our roadmaps around the strategic options, then that makes us more powerful in terms of being able to make broader technology decisions. If we can do that, we can kind of identify the icebergs, the issues and problems at a very high level, and the rest of the iceberg we can still in our model we can work with that, but without understanding the implications and risks associated with certain decisions, which we can model and we can present, then that allows us to provide the CIO with the advice that they need, in which case it makes it more relevant. So we can work out which path we can take, how we can take the correct option, understand the broader innovation process if we can link that into the innovation. And really what we need is a clear understanding of what information we need to provide to the CIO from that perspective. So again, I've worked on a number of projects where we've tried to work out what is a sensible output from an architecture. And really what I found the best way to do that is to question what people want, I bring understand what is being asked, which is a very simple thing. The set of questions, and you can just ask a set of questions, work out then which artifacts you need to model and how you need to model them. And that's kind of link that back into the goals and objectives, and then we can when we start to develop some sort of roadmap from that. It's just a way of thinking and really taking out the complication of it. So rather than rather than detailed kind of UML type models and application architectures, you really want to understand the impact of broad technology on your estate around a particular capability. And that's when we can start to really show some benefits. So in terms of digital innovation and enterprise architecture, agility is an often used word, obviously. The way we try and position agility is, again, just in time, just enough EA. So just enough EA is about modeling what you need to address the particular goals, objectives, and strategy. It's not about trying to get every single application out there in terms of understanding the application from a certain perspective. It's then about working more broadly and collaborating across the business. So it's not just what's in IT and what's been developed, but also trying to get outside into broader teams, and that's pretty tough. It does require us to collaborate both on a formal and an informal manner. So again, the tool is very, very focused on collaboration, so rather than just putting things onto a website and say have a look, because people generally won't. It's about collaborating directly with somebody or a subject matter expert that can help us, fostering those relationships. Yeah, so enterprise architects are more around, I guess, moving from sort of technology space into being able to understand a broader business. The kind of individual that's involved is perhaps more averse to trying to sell the solution, but only by collaborating outside IT, understanding the full scope can we do that. So that's the understanding non-IT. IT is key. And then integration down into the planning cycle. So on the right-hand side, kind of a classic enterprise architecture where you've got a whole bunch of vision, strategy, and goals. You've got big enterprise architecture, which is all your things, the connections, and then to work packages. What we're saying here is that that enterprise architecture needs to be just enough to manage your vision, goals, and strategies, and hooking that down into how we're going to deliver that. So looking at deliverables, objectives, goals, and using enterprise architecture to connect those pieces together at a relatively high level. But importantly, hooking back up into the ideas and initiatives, and that's where kind of the innovation management piece comes, which is where I've got campaigns there. So that's about getting outside of the IT into the business, understanding what's been going on there. There's a whole bunch of tools out there that you can connect to that manage innovation. The innovation process is becoming more and more formalized now. But what we can do is take that information and then hook it into our models and understand what's going on, what technologies, what important parts of the organization are doing certain things. And then we can go back and collaborate with them to make sure our models are in place. So in terms of digital innovation, what's going on is just really about getting out there and understanding the core. The core development is pretty much the same, but I always say keep the models higher level. You've got more chance of having a good conversation with somebody then, but it's not an architect. So next few slides, just to finish off, with just roll through a couple of examples of how you might demonstrate that in the product. I mean, enterprise architecture is about transformation. It doesn't matter if it's digital or non-digital. It's all about transforming from where we are now to where we are in the future. Understanding the gaps and providing a roadmap between those 2 points. It's about us being able to understand the dependencies, not, I guess, the deepest level dependencies, but the dependencies that will actually make a difference. Can we deliver a certain capability at a certain point in time based upon the technology we currently have in place? It's a higher level, and then it allows us to understand the priorities that our projects and programs might take. And of course, you have to be hooked into the PMO and the projects and program side. But transformation modeling the transformation is something that we can provide value for. So let's take a quick scenario to work through here. So I would say 80% of our clients, especially on the new platform, will come to me with some sort of capability map. There's been a map developed around the business, and these are great diagrams for showing the business on a page. Okay, so it takes us away straight away. It takes us away from the sort of detailed technology piece, but it's vital for us to understand how we're going to deliver certain capabilities, understand how we deliver them across different parts of the business. And of course, they lend themselves also to other things like if we take part of another organisation on, then we can look at the capability level from an IT perspective as opposed to get down to the detail. So these capabilities provide a really good way of understanding the business on a page. And what we would do is then drill down and run some queries and heat maps on here. So these are all colours on here. The green represents a critical capability. So that shows me there's a few of those that are critical to the business. The others, we need them because they help us, but they designate these as critical. I've actually said enterprise architecture is critical here. That's probably controversial for some people, but for me it's key. And then we show in the red where it's perceived that we're not as good as our competition in delivering that particular capability. So this is more at a business level, more thinking about how we operate our perception as opposed to a technology layer. But in terms of what I want to focus on, and I want to make change to the organisation, what I want to do, I want to focus on low-performing critical capabilities. I want to be able to improve them. So really, there's a goal out there. There's some goal-driven information that say I need to focus on certain things here. So claim management, digital marketing are the two that where both colours are the same. So this is something you might want to highlight. This is the kind of level we're going to highlight. So this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we need to focus on. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff under here which still needs to be in any model or anything we build, but we focus on a couple of areas. And so then we can start to look at how we might develop and build out different scenarios. So we have in the tool we can build this down into the process and application layer, visualize a very simple process, which actually a couple of these things are very manual. And I've just sort of scooped a line around that saying that these are manual. Again, what's hidden here is kind of you make comments against this so that you can involve others in trying to understand any issues or problems. If you look at the impact that you have at a high level, what other services rely on these different applications, etc. So you've still got that sort of base model in there. But what we're saying here, we've got a whole bunch of stuff here that's possible that we can whip it out. It's very manual at the moment. We can replace it by a single portal, which is connected to mobiles, and so the whole paper chain is cut out. All those things are embedded in this model. But from a high-level perspective, we know that we need to remove some elements, and we can replace it with another element, and then we can start to do some analysis on whether that's the right thing to do. Is it some cost? We can do some cost analysis on this. We can do do a capability analysis on this. We can do the whole any sort of analytics we need. We can build here as we compare the two views. So so building these out, we then need to work out how we're going to actually deliver some of this stuff. So that's where I'll skip a few steps here. So we might use something on the agile idea around Kanbans. We use Kanbans a lot in here. Our clients love these Kanbans. So managing a particular process. I mean, if you imagine you've got an enterprise architecture model with several thousands and tens of thousands of objects in there, and you want to have some sort of context. Drawing a diagram is great, but actually, if you want to involve others and collaborate with others within the organisation, then sometimes you have a slightly simpler approach. And this is just a very simple Kanban, it's just saying what we're going to do, what we're doing, and what's done in terms of our modelling process. This is all around this particular change process. So I'd have got information from that previous diagram, I would do some analysis, I'll go and talk to people, I'd collaborate with others to bring us to this point. to get to a point where we decide how we're going to implement this particular change. So it's using the Kanban to focus very, very much on a particular change. A Kanban is always related back to a goal. So the goal is the driver here. Okay, and the end point is how we're going to deliver this change. So then we can build into, where we want to show how our work packages are split. So I've got a program called Digital World Wave 1, which has a particular package within it, which is upgrade claims handling, which is this consolidation project and server implementation, all the things that we looked at before. There's a gap in here that we know that we need to implement various applications. Some of these may be some of our core applications. Some of them may be have been delivered by the business as part outside of IT, but here they all are in one single roadmap. So we can decide then how we're going to deliver that. So again, the roadmap here, we're looking at capability around claim management, and that's got to be delivered at a certain point. Can we deliver that? So those questions we still use our model for and still want to understand. So there's the tip of the iceberg, which tells us the issues and where we want to focus, relates us back to the goals, and then there's the rest of the iceberg that says, okay, is there an issue and problems around that? So, and this roadmap here just actually highlights that 3 of these items. I've taken off the legend, but the 3 of the items we actually rely on some physical hardware that is out of date at a certain point, so we won't be able to deliver that at the moment. So it's just showing dependencies across that. So again, trying to promote up quick visualization for a high level discussion about different alternatives, and then if you wish, you can drill down to the detail. Okay, so those last 2 slides are really just a set of slides to show how we might address some of those things practically, and we look at how we might build a model that we can then use along with our as part of our decision-making process for how we build our roadmap and how we can advise the CIO about those aspects that are troubling them. So this this evolving digital world is as we know, is impacting the enterprise architecture. It's started to impact now. It will only continue to grow. And so we're saying that if we focus on this sort of agile or just enough architecture, and look at business outcomes, business outcome driven. So what's the endpoint from our objectives? Then we have an opportunity to kind of advise the CIO and just raise this whole perception of EA. I think that's we can raise a perception of the EA and the value that it performs, then others will know what we already know. It's vital to the future development of any organisation who wants to grow and implement these systems properly. So I think that's probably Dan. That's probably that for now. I don't know if you have any questions.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. Yeah.